after having watched the full day of practice here, he has quickly become a favorite from everyone. Everyone is constantly bugging him to come on our shows because he knows ball. He is a knower of ball, and he's also an incredibly nice guy. Lance Reisland, Coach Riz from Cleveland.com, joining us now. What's up, buddy?
Nothing much. Thanks for having me, man.
You enjoying the swamp factor as well?
I'm going to tell you this. As hot as it was today, the first 2 days, I thought I was going down. So today was a little bit, but when that sun went behind the clouds, it was actually comfortable, and then it went back up to a sauna.
So this is the benefit of perspective, because I was complaining about 84 degrees and muggy, and Jake was like, "You have no idea. Yesterday was hell." I was like, all right, let's stop complaining for just a little bit. So it was I did not watch all of practice. I watched, I think, a fair amount, but in what I saw, the offense really looked rough today. Am I going too hard in the paint with that assessment?
No, you're not. Now, I think there's a couple of things that kind of made it that way. First thing they did was they went one-on-ones a little bit more. They have not done that the first 2 days. Secondly, they went red zone with everything they did, the one-on-ones, the team drills. They moved the ball at the end there in 11-on-11s, but the offense really struggled. And it was, I mean, it is what it is. They struggled today.
All right, can I do the thing where then I go, does that mean the defense just looked really good, or was it that the offense truly just struggled?
Well, I'm going to give them some credit because a lot of those guys have been in the system for a long time, and I saw it during mandatory minicamp where you're getting communication things that you usually don't get until closer to the season with motions and formations and things like that. They're checking. They know what they're doing, and when you know what you're doing and you have a new offense, it shows, right? And like I said, the red zone, the windows get smaller. They brought a little pressure today. They haven't shown that, so the offense had to kind of get used to that. But, yeah, it was definitely a day controlled by the defense.
All right, so let's then go to okay. I first got a chance to see Luke Floria today. One, I was really surprised he is a diminutive human being, but two, I do see what people talk about, that quick burst, that little speedy part of him. In terms of maybe some young players or some people that stood out today, where were maybe some of the standouts today?
Well, I think Marshall's done a good job at the tailback. Obviously, they've limited, but he's a big kid who kind of leans forward. And this physicality that they're going back to has more to do with the offensive line for me than it does the backs, right? They got to get the 2nd and 5. Luke Flory has been really good all camp. I've seen him all summer. He's been really good. He is little. The concerns are there, but he gets open. And what he has to do in the slot, they don't have. So not only they light at receiver, they're light for what he is, which is a slot guy working on linebackers, creating some easy yards.
And the other thing I like about him is I wonder if over time, I don't want to lean all the way into the Edelman thing. I love the idea of using that as like the chess piece of let's see how many different places we can get him involved. And that's something I think Kevin Stefanski does really well.
Well, and when you go with 12 personnel, which I think will be their base this year, and you have those athletic tight ends that can do a bunch of stuff, and then you go 11, right? So now you got Flory in the slot. You're right. You can do a lot of different things with him, fly sweeps, jet sweeps. But more importantly, if you're going to be a power run team, he can keep that 6th, 7th, 8th defender out of the box by just simply getting them the ball if they're going to try to stop the run.
Lance Reisland here. I was stifling a burp. I wasn't doing anything other than that, and I have to own that because that's who I am. Lance Reisland with us live out at Browns camp. Again, Dare Ryder coming up in about 15 minutes here. So, big picture. You've been on the record when we've talked to you. You're taking the over on this team. So, anybody who goes one way with this, I like to then say, I like to kind of put you on a hot seat and go, all right, what will be the big reason if they don't hit the over? So when we go 5.5 wins is what Vegas has got. If they don't get more than 5.5 wins, what do you think will be the fatal flaw of this team?
Simply, I think it'll be they don't win on first down, both sides of the ball. Because if you think about it, if they can get the 2nd and 5, they can protect that quarterback a little bit. And then if they can win on first down on defense, now it's 2nd, 3rd long. Now you're going to your strength of this football team, which is that defensive line. So if they don't win first down, it's going to be a long year. But if they can win first down, they can be in a lot of football games.
I almost feel like, there's a Browns team that we had that when they scored first, they were unbeatable. I can't remember. It actually might have been 2020. But if they were the second team to score, they had very little chance to win. Actually, Baltimore had a couple years like this as well when Lamar was young. It feels like that kind of year. Like Kevin Stefanski's perfect scripted opening drive, you take the ball, march down the field, and get 7. It almost feels like the game's going to be decided off that first, who scores first, just because even with Joe, like I don't want Joe Flacco playing from behind this year just because it's not as volatile as Jameis, but that combustibility, bad Joe can come out when he's forcing things and trying to make plays with his arm.
Well, one of the cliches that I learned from my dad is try to end every drive in a kick, and it's kind of weird, but if you can make an offense, even an NFL offense, have to consistently go 80, 90 yards against his defense, you're rolling the dice in your favor. Doesn't mean you're always going to win. It just means you got to play the percentages. You got to make sure if it's 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, maybe you run the ball and punt it. I know that's not popular with everybody, but you play to this defense, punt the ball when it's long yardage. People say winning ugly. Winning's never ugly. They got to find ways to squeeze out wins, and it's playing close to the best, winning on first down, running the ball, stopping the run, all the cliche stuff. But really, they got to end every drive in a kick and create a couple of turnovers, and they can be in some ball games.
So it's interesting. So much of the philosophy is we're going to go back to the blocking scheme that we've succeeded with previously. We're going to go back to the offensive scheme, the heavy play action. We're going to run the heck out of the ball, power scheme, which you've talked about. But it was interesting. Absent of that, I had a friend who does radio in Houston, used to do radio here in Cleveland, and he was one of the guys that reached out for my straw poll of like, hey, you taking the over, you taking the under? And he took the over, and he said something that was really interesting. He hasn't heard what Bloomgren's going to do on the offensive line. I think he can kind of guess we're not running with whatever offense they had last year, but he said something that stuck out to me that I think is a good thing to maybe ping back at you. He said, this is the kind of team that Stefanski wins with. And I think that's a really, really – I still don't entirely – I think I know what he means, but I don't entirely know. Do you agree that this is the kind of team that Stefanski wins with?
Yeah, and these are, use the quarterback position as an example, right? The guys maybe who don't have the highest ceiling, they have to play within the structure, right? So, the idea of we're going to put whatever backs in there to get us to 2nd and 5 because the offensive line is physical. I agree with that. And what you get out of Bloomgren is you get this passion, this energy. That offensive line, that's what they're being told. If we can get, in my opinion, if they can get to 2nd and 6 more often than they did last year, you're going to see the ability to, all right, we don't have a lot of receivers. Oh, that's okay. 2nd and 6, let's run some play action, take a shot to Judy. So there's some things they can do if they can win on that first down. But I agree with that exactly because it tells you you're winning within structure, you're not winning with the players.
So in fairness to Kevin, this is not something he has been entirely in control of every single moment he's been here. But I think it's interesting that Kevin's best moments for people, like they talk about him coaching up Jacoby Brissett. They talk about, 2020 with Baker, that Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, Case Keenum in Minnesota. His best moments have come with something that you just said there. Guys who maybe don't have the most physical talent who have to play within the system. And at points that has felt almost like an albatross as a Browns fan, because I'm like, well, I'd prefer you learn how to do this with a great quarterback. So I'm just kind of curious about that ebb and flow because it does feel like at points, Kevin almost, it's the pretty girl that prefers a dumb boyfriend because it's a little easier to control. It does feel like Kevin prefers that more limited physical quarterback, which has its own limitations. So like I understand the value of that, which is, well, you can win with some substandard quarterbacks. At the same point, I'm like, well, yeah, but Andy Reid did that for a long time. He also had Donovan McNabb and Patrick Mahomes, and he went to Super Bowls and won Super Bowls with one of those guys.
Yeah, when I look at Stefanski's offense when he came out of Minnesota, that the idea of playing within structure, it's like having a quarterback who manages the game. It's kind of become a negative connotation. I don't really see that with his offense. And what I mean by that is that as an offensive coordinator, it's not what you can install, it's what you can fix. And I feel like with the last couple of years, they've been in some things that he can't fix. And we can all design stuff, but if you can't fix it, then you don't know what you're doing. And you're not setting anything up. And, he has a master plan of, let's be in 12 personnel. Let's put Samson out there. Let's find a matchup for Judy on a slot, or that's what he's really good. He's a really good play caller, but I think he's a really excellent play designer when he doesn't have tons and tons of pieces, and his brain kind of works with how do I make this happen in my scheme, especially on 3rd down, especially in empty. But it all starts off with, can you win on 1st down? And then you're in the driver's seat as a play caller.
So let's go to just some basic scorecarding here. So the offense doesn't look great. I know it's early, so we're going to tell our audience we're not overreacting. We're just putting the context of how it's looked. Couple days in here, how's Dillon Gabriel looked?
I've been very impressed with Dillon Gabriel. And, the reason I've been impressed with Dillon Gabriel is, once again, it'll be really important for him when the pads go on. But what he does very well is he's very polished. So his footwork's very polished. You can tell he's been at a bunch of different schools where he's had to throw it from different launch points, in the pocket, 3, 5, 7 drops, boots, waggles, you name it. And he's also seen a bunch of stuff. So what you see out of him is a very cognitively smart kid, where he's going through his progressions and he makes really good decisions and quick decisions. And you have to when you're shorter, because the idea of the line, I can't see over the line. If you know where you're going with the football, you can get rid of it a little bit quicker. He seems to be doing that pretty well.
All right. That means we got to go to Shedeur. How has he looked here early in camp?
Well, Shedeur, when things get like today, when things get pressure, right, and all those quarterbacks have felt pressure. So when the reps he's getting reps with the 3rd and 4th team. Sometimes that pressure is immediately on him, right? And so some of those bad habits come in with his backpedaling, and that backpedaling comes with A and B gap pressure, because you get hit all the time, and you're trying to buy time for your receiver to get open. He does make plays. Now, what they've done with, I feel like they've given Shedeur some passes to build him, right? Some hitches, some boots, some waggles, trying to get him rolling. I watched him. The idea that he doesn't know what he's doing, to me, I saw a bunch of that stuff at Colorado. He knows what he's doing. He's a cognitive, smart kid. But here, now he's got to do it underneath center. He's got to do it, boot, play action. There's a run game, things he's not used to. It's always been him, and you can see there's some growing pains there. And he's got to be on time, because his arm isn't elite. He's got to be on time with the football. There's a lot of quarterbacks that don't have elite arms. They just got to be on time.
Now, when it comes to the preseason, I've yet to debut this take. It'll happen later. I don't need to see Joe Flacco in the preseason at all. They might want to throw him out there for a series or two, because if he ends up being the guy, you want to make sure you have some continuity there. But I want the first game, I want it to be 33% by the 3 quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, and Shedeur. The next week, or the game 2, I want half and half for the rookies. And then the final preseason game, I want it basically the same thing, but reversed. Because I want to give these young guys and Kenny Pickett as many preseason reps as possible, even if, by the way, Joe Flacco still ends up taking this job and he takes it in the next week or two, right? How would you draw up the preseason when it comes to quarterback play? Because, again, it's actually, I just trust Joe Flacco so much to be the pro that I don't feel like he's really going to benefit much from preseason football. And I think that's exactly where I need the young quarterbacks and Kenny Pickett to be.
Well, yeah, there is that fine line of, I got to get some game reps. Even at 40 years old, he's got to get some game reps. So how do you build those in? Do you try to build them into practice a little bit more, maybe go some live sessions of practice? I don't know where that's at. For me, I want to make sure that the best player is playing, and people, those quarterbacks got to get a look. For me, I don't necessarily believe that. I think the quarterbacks have to get up to speed, and if they're all at the same page, then you take a look at them. But until they're all equal, the best guys got to play, because that keeps the rest of your locker room, right? You got to make sure that those guys in the locker room know that the best guys are playing, because unless your boss tells you that I want to see these guys, your job is to win games, not develop. My dad always said you're going to develop guys, and the next coach is going to develop, take your fruits of your labor. So I think they got to figure out that balance here, because there's 4 of them. I got to get that top guy ready. The thing that has to be the most important is winning football games. And what are we going to do to win football games?
So as we all say this, because you are you're a scheme guy, you're obviously a coach here. How different does the offense look that you build from Joe Flacco to Kenny Pickett from Joe Flacco to Dillon, from Dillon to Shedeur?
Well, if you look at his system, he can always tweak it for the quarterback. So if one quarterback can run that boot waggle, they like to run. One quarterback, Pickett, Gabriel, those guys can stay on the run. If it's Flacco, he's just going to set up. But the protection from the offensive line stays the same. So he can tweak it, a guy that has really good feet or a guy who can't move. Without changing it up front. And that's really where the key is. I don't want to change it too much for my offensive lineman. I want those guys down and set and playing aggressively. So he can tweak that a little bit for the guy. The offense won't be any different, in my opinion. It's just maybe the launch point, maybe where you get rid of the football, but it won't be different in terms of the levels, concepts, trying to find things that empty. Kevin Stefanski's scheme, I've seen it now for 3 days, and I saw it during the summer where he's doing what he does. He's going to try to power run. He's going to run the play action off it. He's going to get in formations and try to create opportunities and matchups, and all 4 of those guys can do that.
He is our Nits and Grits guy here on Afternoon Drive. You know him, you love him, Cleveland.com. Spectrum News as well as a color commentator. Follow him on Twitter, @Lance Reisland. Coach Riz, awesome stuff today. I'm sure we'll have you on out throughout camp here, but really good stuff, buddy. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.